Hello, it's me, and I've got a very interesting, very special puzzle here. This is a 5 by 5 by 3, or 3 by 5 by 5, depending on how you want to call it. This was made by Dan Fast, our favorite Crazybadcuber. Anyway, this is a particularly challenging one. It's actually a beautifully crafted puzzle. Apparently this was a collaborative effort between him and a guy named Tom, and it's really brilliantly put together. What they did is they took, I believe, a 5 by 5 by 4, did some gluing and did some sanding and did some building magic, and they ended up with this guy over here. A perfectly formed pillowed 5 by 5 by 3. Now, this isn't just a typical cuboid, and we're going to go through a solution, we're going to go through a solve of this, but this has some characteristics that sets it apart from other cuboids. So what do I mean by that? Well, in most cuboids that we've talked about, the base of it, the width of it, is actually thinner than the height. This is why I call them towers. So here's the next up level of it. Now, bear in mind, this is the 3 by 5 by 5 is a shapeshifter, and this one can actually shapeshift in all directions. And this one remains true to its form as a shapeshifter, even though it came from a 5 by 5 by 4. It acts exactly the way that you would expect a fully functional shape-shifting puzzle to go. Beautifully constructed. But here's its reciprocal, I guess, the 3 by 3 by 5. Now with this one, this also shape-shifts in every direction, but the difference is that the height is greater than the width, but the height never changes, actually. So even as I shape-shift it, I never go above this height. So because of that, as I solve it, as I get it back to the cuboid form, this is always the same level. So what the heck does that mean? Well, here's the next level above that can shapeshift, the 5 by 5 by 7. So this is another example, is it can shapeshift in all directions, but the height never changes. No matter what I do, the height never changes. Hopefully I didn't end up scrambling this. If I did, so what? It means I can try to solve it. There we go. All right, we're safe. So here's what's different about these. With these particular puzzles, when you have a base that's higher and it shapeshifts, you end up getting an interesting situation because you change the height of this. So if I move this up here and turn this here, and as I'm shapeshifting, I'm now extending this above here. Now it's a little harder to see in the pillowed versions of these, but basically this is an extended layer poking up, and when you do that, when you've extended this above the height, you're going to run into issues with trying to bring it down. What I'm going to do is try to bring this back. There we go. Now, the other puzzles that are kind of like this, that do the same thing, would be the 4 by 4 by 2. So the 5 by 5 by 3, its next closest cousin will be something like this. And you come about a similar issue. This is Ola Jansen's version of it. You can see you come up here, come across here, and I've extended this above here. And if you look at the tutorial with this, the solve of this, then you see that I come about a situation where I have to flatten these down, and it's a little more difficult than you find with others. Here's Tanner Frisbee's version, another brilliant creation. It's really the same kind of thing. The internal mechanism is different. This is more of a pillowed type version as well. But it came across the same problems. But these are the closest approximation. Now the solve of this and the problems that you're going to get into with this are exactly the same as the 3 by 5 by 7. And I will tell you that when I go through the solve of this, I solve the 3 by 5 by 7 exactly the same way because it runs into the same type of situation, as it's a shapeshifter in all directions and can shapeshift everywhere, really. By doing that, I'll run into the same problem, so the solve is exactly the same. So the 3 by 5 by 5 and the 3 by 5 by 7 share a common mechanism as to how to solve it. I will be going through this at some time later, but right now we're going to go through this over here. So in terms of scrambling, like I say, it's a shapeshifter in all different directions. There is a sort of bandaging that starts to happen with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with a 180-degree scramble. I usually like to do that just to make it more interesting, more challenging. And as I'm scrambling it, like a non-shape-shifting cuboid, you can see that only these two layers are mixing. Middle layers only mix opposite with each other, but these can mix practically anywhere. But I'm about to lift it out of that restriction pretty soon. So more here, And I'm just going to try to get a good scramble. Now, in solving this puzzle, I will tell you there are two situations and two scenarios that add a difficulty to this kind of puzzle that you will not find with other cuboids. And I'm going to distinguish the type of cuboids based on that structure. When the width is greater than the height, then you're going to get a particular situation, and it's a shapeshifter, then you're going to get a particular problem with extensions that go above the height and having to flatten it out. But that's not the hardest part of this puzzle. The hardest part, once you figured out how to do that, oops, let's go like this, and this. Once you figure out how to do that, is there is a specific kind of parity that can happen with this. Now you might say, well, wait a minute, this is an odd numbered puzzle. Aren't you not supposed to get parity situations? And the answer is yes, except in this case. There is a type of parity that emerges from a reductive process. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and do some shape-shifting maneuvers. I'll just move this down here, maybe move this over here, and then just start to wheel this around. I'll move this twice here, move this here. And now as I'm turning this, you can see that I'm going to start bandaging certain layers. Now, that's not uncommon. We've seen this with other type of shapeshifters. We know that after a while, like certain things cannot be moved, like this layer can't be moved, so I'm moving it just based on this over here. So I'm going to keep scrambling it, and when I think I've got a good scramble, I'm going to come back and continue. Abracadabra. Okay, very good. I really like this puzzle a lot. It's actually fastly becoming one of my favorites. It's a cute little puzzle and it's very portable. Now that's a good thing because for me, what I like to do is from time to time I like to take my puzzles with me to various places, and if it's portable, then it's nice because then I can pull it out and use it at any time. So, strategies. I'm going to stick with the same strategies that I use for all cuboids. And I promise you that within the process of this, I'm not going to invent any new algorithms. It's all going to be algorithms that we've seen. But we may have to use a familiar algorithm in a way that we've not used before. So what's my overall goal? Well, the overall goal basically, when you get a cuboid, is you want to get all your centers in. Well, we're not going to be able to get all of our centers in. I could, say, work on the yellow center or the white center, and I'll be able to get that, but I won't be able to get the other center because I'm bandaged. So I need to be able to move certain segments, certain layers independent. And if I can't do that, I can't get both centers at the same time because in the process of trying to move one in, I'm going to end up, because of the bandaging, move it out. So in order to get my centers, I need to be able to free up surfaces. The way that I'm going to do that to free up layers is I'm actually going to do a 3x3 solve. My general approach when I do cuboids, especially shape-shifting cuboids, is you have to solve it based on the lowest common denominator, or the lowest layer. In the case of a 3x3x5, I start off with a 3x3 solve so that I can move it to a cuboid form. With a 5x5x7, I solve it as a 5x5 because that's the lowest common denominator, it's the lowest layer there. So with the 3x5x5, the 3 layers are lowest, so I solve it like a 3x3. And that's very straightforward. And the way that I solve it as a 3x3 is I have the center, I've got the corners, and I got the edges. I define the edges based on the very last portion, the terminal portion, and I leave the middle portions alone for now. What this is going to do is this is going to solve the outer shell. And if I solve the outer shell, I'm going to free up other layers that I can't move right now. Not all of them, but I'll free up enough so that I can get some work done. So I'm going to start off with my 3x3 solve. I guess I'll put, my suggestion is to go ahead and put the yellow one on the top. So I'm going to get my cross. So it's going to be the terminal portions. By the way, corners are going to be defined as a terminal portion here. So this whole thing is a corner, even though this is bandaged to it for now. So this is going to go with the green center, which is over here. Again, if you've been following how I do these things, I'm doing it no different from before. So I ignore this, and this is the first part here. So let's see what else we have. We've got this yellow and orange, so I'm going to move this into here. So this is here, and bring it up like so. So far, so good. So we've got this over here. Here's the red. Move this to here, and swing it on up. So you can see our cross is emerging here. Again, ignore these. We're not there yet. Here's a blue, move it here. Again, this is done, quote, intuitively. And again, what I mean by intuitively is that it does not take algorithms. It just takes maneuvering and placing. Pow. So here's our cross. here, here, here. You can see it's lined up with the centers. Next part of the solve, and basically I'm doing a 3x3 solve, is I'm going to put the corners in. So let's find all the yellow corners. Here's yellow, red, and blue. So let's put that where it's supposed to be. Here's the blue over here, here's the red and yellow. So this one gets rolled up to here. Now again, I'm moving it like a 3x3, so I have to move it like this, just off to the center here. I'm not trying to move this. As a matter of fact, if I have an opportunity to move just this layer, I don't, because that's going to cause complications and issues and problems that we saw with the 3x4x5. So what else? Here, orange, blue, and yellow. Right over here actually, so it's lined up. And just putting my corners in like a 3x3. You can see it emerging pretty well here. This is already in. This is where it needs to be. I just have to roll it down. Turn, 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 turn. Yeah. Good. Now we just have this. And now we're going to move this one in. Bang. See, notice now I can free this one up here. And it doesn't really matter. I can go ahead and move it. But it wasn't really my point. So this is actually my first 3x3 side. I've got this all in here. So the next step is I put the middle layer in. So turn this upside down, and this is my middle layer here. These are extensions. So it's going to move in from the top, and what I'm looking for is I'm looking for everything that isn't white. So over here, this is the terminal portion. This is an edge that's going to flip down to here somewhere. In this case, it's red and green. So move this to the red side. Again, ignore this. This is the red center. This green comes down to here. So I'm doing the Rubik's Cube algorithm to take this edge and move it to here from the left side. So it's going to be UI, LI, U, L, U, F, UI, FI. All right, so just a review. So that's in over here. Now I keep wandering around. I've got blue and red. So let's put that in. This comes down to here. Bang, zoom. Pow, splat, crunch, crack, bang, crack. All right, so this is all in over here. Good. Now this has to come in. This is already lined up with orange, and this gets pulled down to here. So again, I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm not rewriting anything. I'll tell you though that this may be one of the first times that this technique is showed, and this will be useful in a variety of other cuboids that follow the same pattern. So okay, so basically we have our middle layer over here, so we're good. Now I do the top layer. Well, these are our edges, and they're all upside down. So we do the algorithm to flip them, and that's F, R, U, R, I, U, I, F, I. So we have these two, that's our L formation. So holding it here, F, R, U, R, I, U, I, F, I. We have our line, F, R, U, R, I, U, I, F, I. I have to say this is one of the first cuboids I've owned that is a modification from another cuboid. Most of them are built from the bottom up by way of shapeways or by way of, handmade. This one is pretty ingenious. It's a mod of a cuboid. So now you can see that we have these rotated in the right position. This is where it needs to be. This is where it needs to be. These two aren't. So the way that I do it with this is I hold it to where the two that are where they need to be are in the front and to the right. Do a UI so that this is facing here. Then go R, U, R, I, U, R, 2U, R, I. Then 2U. Okay, so that gets our top cross over here. So now we put the edges in the usual way. Now that this has been calibrated here, are there any ones that are already in? Not here, not here. And here is good, which means that this one isn't good. So we do our U, R, U, I, L, I, U, R, I, U, I, L. So not yet. Bang, bang, zoom, 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 pow. Okay, so this is where it needs to be, as is this. So we just bring them down in the usual manner. So turn, 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 turn. It's here. So it's all so deceptively simple. Turn. Bring this over here. Turn, turn, turn. Turn, 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 turn. And finally once more. Turn, 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 turn. And we've got it. So we have ourselves the 3x3 solve. Whoop. Bring this out over here. So this is basically our 3x3 solve. We've solved the outer shell with this. So the next step. Well, what we want to do is, you can see that we freed up some of our edges, or some of our layers. We can move this, but we can't move this. Now the reason why we can move some but not others is anytime you have this that's kind of poking into here, it's bandaged, you can't. But if it's facing this way on all sides, you can. So this moves, and this doesn't move. Now I'll tell you that the next step is to bring the centers in. Now the way this was scrambled, unfortunately it's going to be a little more easier than I wanted to show. But let's go through it anyway. So what you want to do is this. Here's actually what your goal is. What you want to do is you want to move the centers where they're supposed to be. So ultimately, my ultimate goal is these need to be replaced with, say, these. This obviously doesn't belong here. This belongs over here. This doesn't belong here. It belongs here. So among these centers, I need to get the edge portions of the centers down. But in order to do that, I have to be able to move all the layers. I can only move this. So as you can see, if I wanted to say, if I had it in this position and I wanted to move this down, all I'd have to do is go like here, bang, we're done. So the question is, how can I make this to where these guys come down? Because if these guys are only brought down, I can move these quite freely. So how do I move these down? Well, we actually have a way of doing that. And it might not be what you expect, but we have a way of being able to move these down. I'll see if you can guess what algorithm that is. So pause the video for a second. And what algorithm do I know that can bring this down? Did you figure it out? Well, it's the same one that we use if we wanted to flip this, because that's all you're doing is you're flipping this. It's the Red Bull algorithm, because as you recall, in a similar situation, you've got the center edge, or the middle edge, and the two corner edges. And if you were to go 2R, 2B, 2U, L, 2 up, RI, 2 up, R, 2 up, 2F, R, 2F, LI, 2B, 2R, that effectively swaps these two. And that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. That's exactly how you do that. Now remember the law of cubes. You may think, oh, well, we actually just swap these two. Isn't that impossible? Isn't that just one swap? But something else actually happens with this. You don't realize it when you look at this, but not only does this swap down, this actually swaps with each other. So these two cross and they flip. You wouldn't know that from here because these two look equivalent, but that's actually what happens. That's going to become important for the next step that comes after this. But before I can flip this down, what I need to do is I need to do it exactly like this. I need to separate this out. So that needs to be my R, and this needs to be my L. But here, I can't do that. It's got to be the whole thing, and that's going to mess things up. So what I need to do is I basically need to set this up to where this is not in this position. Set it up to where this can move, and it's not going to move if this is hanging over here. So this just takes a little bit of turning and a little bit of doing in order to make this work. So let's see how we can make this work. Now, I'm going to come out of the 3x3 solve. It served its purpose. It basically flattened this out. So now I'm actually going to destroy it a little bit. So I'm going to bring that down. This opens this so this can move. But this guy's still going to be a problem because of this over here. So we're just going to kind of work with it and see if there's some way that we can set this up to where we can move these down. So I'm going to move this, say, over here. And I'm going to turn this guy twice and move this here. Now what I did is I just wanted to put this opposite here. Now there's no need to memorize what I just did. Just move it to where all of these are kind of facing the same direction, and this frees up this layer, and this frees up this layer. So now what I can do is I can now do the Red Bull algorithm to flip that down. If what I just did didn't make a whole lot of sense to you, Let me know if you ever end up with this puzzle. But basically, you don't want this facing over here because that's going to bandage that layer. See, if I turn this here, you can't move this layer over here. So Red Bull will bring this down. This will be R and this will be L. I'm going to move this out of the way so that you can visualize it a little bit better, not correlate it with this. So 2R. Now I should also say, when I do this, for those who have this puzzle, my R's are going to be in the middle, but I'm still going to move these two just off the center. So my F is going to be, rather my U is going to be here, my B is going to be here, just off center, and my F is going to be here. So it's going to be these two layers together. So 2R, 2B, 2U, and then L. 2 up, RI, 2 up, R, 2 up, 2F, R, 2F, LI, 2B, 2R, and look at that, worked perfectly. So these two are now down, so we're good. And now I do the same thing here, because once I do that, I'm going to start really being able to free up these so that I can move these down. So once again, Red Bull algorithm with this. Now I want you to notice something else too. Remember that yellow and orange is here to the left, and white and green is here to the right. This is going to flip this down and flip these as well. So the orange and yellow is going to end up over here. So 2R, 2B, 2U, L, 2 up, RI, 2 up, R, 2 up, 2F, R, 2F, LI, 2B, 2R. And we're cooking. Look at that. All that's down. You can see how good this puzzle moves. It actually moves really, really well. Now that we've done that, we can move all of our layers, and that's what we need to do to bring the centers back. Now I want to say this too. We're doing a process of reducing right now, because once I have this reduced down and I flatten this dimension down, so to speak, I'm going to be solving it basically by doing 180-degree turns in one direction and 90-degree turns in another direction. But I might be reducing this in a way that could not have been scrambled if I started out in that position, which by definition is a parity. I'll show you more of what I mean by that. But in order to prevent that, with the middle layers, the opposite layers have to only scramble with each other. So red and orange must be scrambled with each other, and blue and green must be scrambled with each other. I can't have a situation like this. If I have a situation like this, I've rendered this puzzle insolvable by the methods that I use doing 180-degree turns. In other words, I'll end up with something like a parity, but it really isn't a parity because I can see it. If I can see it and realize that that's not where it should be, that becomes a placement issue. So these two need to end up either here or here, and this has to end up not there. So that's the overall strategy, and here's how I'm going to walk my way out of it. First thing I'm going to want to do is let's move this out. I want this one to come out. So I'm just going to move this in here and move this out. Now that Red Bull algorithm, get used to it. We're going to be using that a lot with this puzzle. Maybe there's a quicker way of solving it. I don't know, but this is how I do it. So I'm just going to move this down, which will effectively move this out of this area, and that's really what I wanted to do. Okay, what I also want to do is I want to make sure that there's two of complementary colors 180 degrees off of each other. So if there's a red here, I need to make sure there's another red or yellow, which is right here. With this blue, I need to make sure there's another blue or green, which I don't see as of yet, so I'm going to have to fix that. But what I can do is maybe put these in, and the reason, which is going to become clear, is when I put this in, when I put it down, I'm going to have to put another one in. So I'm going to double turn this over here. So what's going to happen is now I've got these two that are opposite each other so that they both can populate where they're supposed to be at the same time. So I'm going to double turn this over here because I want to substitute this for this and this for this. And as long as I'm able to move it here, I don't have to do any red bulling. So now I'm just going to move this down here. And it doesn't matter if this goes here or if this red goes to here. So I'm just going to move these two together on block like so. So this is good and this is good. So now that leaves us with this. So this is a scenario where we only have one up and this needs to come here. So the way that I'm going to do this, as long as I'm able to, is let's turn this over here, and I need to organize a situation where I'm going to move this down, but when I move this down, two are going to come up. So if I were to say move this down here, this will join this will come down, but I'm no better than when I started, right? So what I have to do is I have to coordinate it to where when I move this down, move this into this layer, it bumps this one out and it bumps another one out so that I can put them both in at the same time. So what I'm going to do is double turn over here, and ideally what I'd like to do is now move it down like this, but I can't. I'm bandaged over here. So let's turn this back here. So in order for me to continue, I need to start red bulling again to move these down. So I'll move this over here, and now I can move these down here. So I'll very quickly do that. Okay, that's down. So now that just leaves these two. Well, maybe I don't need to red bull these quite yet, as long as I know that I can move this down, and I can now move this down quite easily here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this blue one, move it down to here. It'll kick this green out here and this green out over here, but that's okay. That's what I wanted to do, because I'd rather have two up here than one. So move this down so we're good here. That leaves these two. So now these two can end up coming where it needs to be. Now right now you see two over here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and make it move all the way across to here. Just like that. So why did I do that? Well, I did that because this, when this comes into here, it's going to replace this. When this comes down here, it's got to replace this. So I'm going to double turn that here. I may be moving a little fast, but basically this and this coincide with this and this. So now I'm just going to bring it down like so. Now when I did that, I basically put in all of these edge portions of the centers in. And you can see they're where they need to be, within 180 degrees. Now what we have left to do is just bring these down, and then we can do our usual cuboid solve. So bring these down using the red bull out. The moral of this story is don't give up on your previous strategies if you run into trouble. You probably have all the tools and talents and information that you need to solve it. Just start thinking outside the box. Now I move this down to R, to B, to U, L, to up, RI, to up, R, to up, to F, R, to F, LI, to B, to R. Now we've served our purpose. We have flattened this out to our cuboid form. But the journey is not over. The hardest part is still yet to come, actually.